Good morning, mathematicians. We are looking at our section D checkpoint for this unit 5, and let's begin. Number 1 says to find the value of one whole being divided by 5 hundredths. And of course, as always, we will use the diagram if it is helpful. And in this case, we're definitely going to use the diagram because here I see one whole. And I am going to break all of these hundredths into groups of 5 hundredths. So if I do that, let's first go ahead and claim 5 hundredths here. That is a group of 5 hundredths, right? Well, now below it is another group of 5 hundredths. And if I continue this, I can do another group of 5 hundredths here. And let's alternate our colors. We're going to have another group of 5 hundredths here, and 5 hundredths here, and 5 hundredths here, and 5 hundredths here, and 5 hundredths here. Notice I'm going ahead and claiming my 5 hundredths, which will be shown with this yellowish shading. And now I'm going to come and I'm going to do the exact same thing, but with that alternating color with the red. So we're going to have our groups of 5 hundredths in tan or yellow already shaded. And now I'm coming in and I'm claiming the ones that I am highlighting in this red color. Okay, now every single section represents a group of 5 hundredths, right? Now, how are we going to use this in order to figure out what the answer is? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how many groups of 5 hundredths did we just make. Well, I have 10 that are shaded in yellow, and I have 10 that are shaded in red. So together that gives me an answer of 20. So I now know that 1 being divided up into groups of 5 hundredths gives me 20 total groups. Now, if we were going to explain this, I always say that when we do a diagram, it's good to give it a little bit of a caption. So I'm going to say here simply that I filled the unit square. That's what we started with, right? Was a unit square that represented one whole. I filled the unit square with groups of 5 tenths. Actually 5 hundredths, I should say. And there were 20 of them. Okay, now that I have recorded my little caption that goes on with my diagram, I have completely finished that number 1 by giving both the value, using the diagram, and even a little caption that helps us to understand exactly what took place. Okay, let's go on to our next question. So our next question says to explain how the shaded region of the diagram shows 72 hundredths being divided into 6. Well, first of all, when I look at this, I am seeing 72 hundredths in that shaded square of the diagram, and notice that it is divided into 6 groups. Because here, and let me switch my color and make it a little bolder, here I see one group, here I see my second group, a third group, a fourth group, a fifth group, and a sixth group, right? So I am seeing exactly what was asked for in that diagram. I am seeing it perfectly carried out in how that unit square represents 7 whole columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there is the 7 tenths, right? But then notice we have 2 hundredths more in that 8th column. So I have 72 hundredths. And look how they are perfectly put into 6 groups. So when I come to answering the question, which will be in B, that's where we'll actually figure out how many hundredths ended in each group. But for A, all I'm asked to do is really just to explain how I see 72 hundredths and how that is divided into 6. which of course is the 6 equal groups. So let's go ahead and let's write that answer. So we're going to say here that there are a total of 72 hundredths. And again, we saw that in 7 complete columns. That gives us 7 tenths. And then 2 extra single squares, which gives us the 2 hundredths. So together that's 72 hundredths. And you know what? I'm actually not going to put a period here. I am going to be very precise and say 72 hundredths of the square shaded, right? That way I am saying exactly how we see that in the diagram is because that diagram represents one whole, and I am seeing 72 hundredths of the square shaded, right? Now I'm going to say it is divided into 6 equal parts. Now, notice, boys and girls, we are explaining the expression here, not the equation, so we aren't actually going on and saying anything about the answer, which is going to be how many hundredths are in each of those 6 groups. That we're actually going to reserve for B. So 2B is where we're actually going to get to that. This is a complete answer for 2A. Now let's go down and let's think about 2B. So 2B says to actually find the value of the answer. So the value of the answer is going to be where we see our 6 groups, how much are in each group. So let's go ahead and let's count how many hundredths. For example, here are in group 6. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Each of these groups has 12 hundredths in it. That is where my answer actually is. So here I'm going to say the answer. Right now I'm going to write it as an actual equation. I have 72 hundredths being divided up into 6 groups. And how much is in each group? Well, there's 12 hundredths in each group, okay? And I know that to be true since I counted the individual squares that are in each group, and there are 12 individual squares, which is 12 hundredths, right? We don't have to write an explanation for 2B. Instead, it is sufficient to give our answer, which we have. We simply were asked to find the value. Our last question for this checkpoint is to take a look at the expression that we are given and to figure out which one expression that is listed has the same value. So the expression that we are given is this, 84 being divided into 1/10 pieces, right? So take a look at that. I am starting with this idea of 84 wholes being divided by 1/10. So when you take a look at this, the answer that you should select is D. Answer choice D is the correct answer. Let me show you why answer choice D is the one that we should select. What we have seen in this unit is that we can move the decimal point in the divisor and the dividend the same number of times so that it can help us to do our math more efficiently and more accurately, but we have to treat the dividend and the divisor fairly, which means we have to move the decimal the same number of times. So this is the only answer choice where that has happened. To go from 84 to 8 4/10, I would have to move my decimal point 1 time to the left. Because look, in 84, a whole number, the decimal sits at the end. So if I move it 1 time to the left, now I have 8 4/10, which is what I had for answer choice D, 8 4/10. But I would have to do the same thing for the divisor. So here I would also have to move my decimal point 1 time to the left to turn it into, instead of 1/10, 1/100th, which of course matches exactly what we see for answer choice D. So for both the divisor and the dividend, the decimal point was moved one time to the left. And that checked out for this movement one time to the left and this, the divisor movement one time to the left. In A and B and C, it was not treated fairly. The decimal points were moved in all of them, but they weren't moved the same number of times in the same direction, which is what we must have for that to be a procedure that will work and will lead to exactly the same answer. Because remember what we've also found to be true, this works because 84 divided by 1/10 is going to give us the exact same answer that we will get if we take 8 4/10 and if we divide that up by 100th. The reason this works is because if you move your decimal point the same number of times in your divisor and your dividend and the same direction, then you're coming up with exactly the same answer. Okay, that finishes out this particular checkpoint.